But before I get started, I would love to get a show of hands as people come back in. Who considers themselves a security practitioner? Yep, okay. Keep your hand raised and/or raise it if you consider yourself a risk practitioner. Same people. Third question, who's not going to answer stupid polling questions at the beginning of a presentation because they're awkward, you're not going to give away information, or you're just not participating? Integrity, I love it. You're on the blue team, not the red team. And you're an ex-officer or in the army or something. Something to do with integrity. I love it. Good work. Fourth question, who cycles? You're just putting your hand up to everything, aren't you? Yeah. Because good afternoon, everybody. My name is Nick. I'm from Cisco Secure, and I'm a mountain biker. Strangely, oddly enough, yeah, I'm a mountain biker. Yesterday evening, I went out for my evening mountain bike by night at the local hills, Mount Stromlo, and I draw the comparison between what I was doing there at night and what I do as a security and risk practitioner. Now, I'm not a very good mountain biker. I'm not a very fast mountain biker, but I weigh up my experience, my courage, which is kind of like my risk appetite, and my ability to work out how quickly and what I can do by night on a mountain bike. And the thing that I've come to the conclusion, I can actually mountain bike as fast as I do by day as I do by night. And the key to that is visibility. So I've got this huge light on the front of my mountain bike that wherever my mountain bike points, it turns night to day, i.e. I get to be able to mountain bike as fast as I do by day as I do by night. It's very close. I soon came to the conclusion though, I hit new trails, they're weaving through the bush, they're dipping, they're diving, I miss rocks, I start to make a few bad decisions. I was missing a key piece of lighting, that was the light on my helmet. So I supplemented my bike visibility with a helmet visibility. And what that allows me to do now is wherever my bike's pointing, I get visibility. But wherever I'm looking, I can also light up. So as the trail turns, I'm turning my head, I get visibility. And visibility is the key, and it's not just settling for what everybody else is doing, putting a light on the front of the bike. It's assessing my risk appetite, my ability to go faster on the trails by assessing what that gap is and putting a light in my helmet. So I actually see that as a, what we do on a daily basis. I consider myself a risk practitioner. I am Nick Clark. I'm also a security architect at Cisco Secure, not just a mountain biker, even though I'm a slow mountain biker. I do other things as well. Now that sounds like I'm here today to talk about Microsoft 365 and how bad it is. Absolutely not. There is a huge uplift in the use of Microsoft 365 for email and for very good reasons. What I'm here to talk about today and for you to take away is just to challenge if you're a user or you're about to take on Microsoft 365 in your environment. Are the controls, the mitigations, the alerting and the telemetry that you're getting from Microsoft 365 enough? Do you need that light on your helmet to address any gaps? The way we're going to do that, threefold. I'm going to start with FUD, because, no I'm not. Current threat landscape, yeah sure I'll throw up some statistics, but the intent is not FUD whatsoever. It's supporting the fact that people are moving to Microsoft 365. How the industry is innovating to meet that threat. And thirdly, what does that mean for Microsoft 365 customers? Key point being, I'm not going to tell you what it means for you. That's for you in your organisation as members of that organisation to understand your risk, understand what your risk appetite is and whether there is or whether there are any gaps. So the current threat landscape, where are we sitting? I did say a little bit of FUD. 91% of attacks, these first couple of statistics are from FBI reports, so they're US based, but globally speaking still hold water. 91% of attacks still involve email to a certain degree. Now that can be the primary threat vector, or it may not be the primary threat vector, but email is still used prolifically. Cost of $2.8 billion, not insignificant, and when we're talking phishing attacks alone 300,000 complaints. Now, if I throw in an ACSC statistic of, in the ballpark of $100 million in 2022 from business email compromise, it's not insignificant, and it's not insignificant when we overlay that on the Australian landscape. So I want to touch on, as part of that threat landscape, a couple of key ones. I'm going to start with account takeover, often referred to as the ATO, and you all would know ATO as a significant threat vector in your lives. No, I kid, I hope no one's from the ATO here. So what is it? It's the attacker taking a control of internal email accounts via phishing, and the campaigns are often centralized around resetting passwords. It's used to then go on to the next step, which I'll talk about in a moment, which is business email compromise. And from that point, the ability to distribute malware and move laterally. But why do we care about account takeover? Because once an account is taken over, it becomes internal. Microsoft 365 as the example, and a lot of email capability is looking at that perimeter of external to internal or internal to external. There's not a lot of focus on internal email. And as far as our users go, we've trained them to a certain degree, to look for specific items in an email. But if you get an email from an internal source, a trusted source, your guard comes down immediately, right? Here's an example. Valak malware was prevalent back in 2020. There's some great blogs, some great information around on Valak from Cisco Talos, Palo Alto's Unit 42, Sentinel-1, throw it into Google. There is some great reading on it. Used in account takeover, definitely in business email compromise, to shift malware loaders around from trusted sources. It didn't know any industry standard, industry barriers. Whatever your industry was, it was used, and it was used heavily. And it did well at evading gateway solutions or gateway security solutions initially. So we moved to the business email compromise, and that's when we now have attackers sending spoofing emails, generally from people of interest, people known, or at least neutral. Spoofing to ask for something. And when they're asking for something, they're not usually attaching URLs, that one of those things we've trained our users for. They're not attaching necessarily documents, something we've trained our users for. It can look fairly benign, but they're in low volumes. Interestingly, half of cybercrime losses are now coming from business email compromise, because business email compromise as a form of phishing is focused on financial gain. So they will ask for something eventually as the email chain expands, but they're usually asking for a payment. Go to this site, make this payment, do this thing. Not click my link and let me destroy your computer with malware. 50 times greater. Now that's an interesting statistic, right? Losses from business email compromise, 50 times greater than in ransomware. Ransomware is something we see frequently in the news. But business email compromise is a significant financial issue. Now, looking at July to December in 2022, it's still on the increase. Not going away, it's only getting, thank you, I'm not finished, but thank you. It's only increasing. Email's not going to go away, right? We use it every day. It's one of the first things provisioned. New user comes into the organization, you get an email account. So why are threat actors starting to use AI? Next logical step, I'm jumping ahead. We've got account takeover, business email compromise, the threat actors. What are they doing? Well, they're using AI. Now, it wouldn't be a presentation if we didn't mention the word AI. So if anyone playing bingo at home, there you go. The reason is pretty straightforward, right? Increasingly more targeted. I've talked about business email compromise, low volumes, increasingly more targeted. And the ability to create that with great language processing, the ability to have different communication channels targeted as part of that one interaction with artificial intelligence, generate a lot of info as an output, and generate unique output as well to help bypass some of the traditional filters. And I'll talk about the traditional filters coming up. Now, it provides them the ability to do this quickly. So instead of taking weeks of social engineering to understand somebody, collate information, what are their interests, where do they go, what time do they come to work, what section do they work at, to generate that information, to try and craft one email as an input to that organisation, to then have a filter block at the email gateway, it's a big investment from a threat actor. So the return on investment is to get artificial intelligence to do it for them. Same reason we're doing it as security practitioners, right? We're trying to speed up our threat intelligence. We're trying to speed up that life cycle. Surprisingly so are the threat actors. And now what that gives us is lots of different messages to evade volumetric detection. So we're going from those known things we used to do around volumetric detection for spam. We're starting to evade them with AI and focused emails. What can they do now? Well, not all generative AI is created equal. So whilst the good guys might do the right thing, the bad guys are never going to do the right thing, and they only need to be right once. Now, of course, this is all programmatically accessed too through APIs. So we can program with very few pieces of information and get a lot of output. Where's that output going? We can amass great amounts of information, slightly differences between that information to create those targeted email campaigns now, where we have a mass list, targeted email addresses, but being specific inside our business email compromise concept, where we're looking at payroll administrators specifically, the EAs, and the list goes on. So what are we doing about that? A couple examples just on ATO and business email compromise, BEC. So I did say I'd talk about the widely known threats, the traditional stuff that we do, and where we're going. So what are we doing about it? Well, if I start on the right of that diagram, the things that I've talked about from a threat actor and a threat vector perspective sit over here on the left. They've got AI at their disposal, they've got the time at their disposal, and they've got their targets at their disposal to craft very specific attacks. Where we are on the right, typically, is this known stuff, widely known for that matter. And we move further to the left as the attacks that they're using become more prevalent, we research them, we understand them, and they become known, and we can filter that information into our email gateways. Sender IP reputation, we've got things like DMARC and SPF. Now some of those known filters, varying levels of efficacy depending on configuration, depending on what the sender configuration is in the sender gateway. There's a lot going on with those filters and how good they can be. If we keep moving to the left, this is where we're getting interesting and specifically around cloud-delivered email such as Microsoft 365, right? We're looking at emerging threats. Yep, we're getting more interesting now. We're starting to use things like algorithm matching. We're starting to use cloud terminology where we're starting to use mass data analytics to come up with interesting detectors and engines. If we go into the unknown and targeted, we're looking at detections and engines that are looking at things like relationship models. When we're talking business email compromise from an internal perspective, the ability to understand that you may not email you very frequently, and actually there's not a relationship that I can make sense of there because you're in different departments. Natural language understanding and natural language processing. Critical. The AI engines that threat actors are using are spitting out fantastic, in this audience case, English emails, even using things like colloquialisms to make it look real, dropping our users' guard on what they're expecting from spam or phishing emails. So, whilst we move left and we start to create detectors and engines, it's not just one big filtering system like it used to be. We're creating these little pieces that go after very specific parts and information or indicators as part of that email. What that means is we can then layer those together to give us an indicator that that email is coming from a compromised source or a threat actor. If I take that as an example from a business email compromise, and I do have a couple of examples coming up, where we can look for a detector or an engine that's looking specifically at a fake reply detector or an external department detector. So there's little detections that now are coming together to give you a higher confidence that that email is not a legitimate email. A couple of more examples around things like phishing. Message indicators. actually digging in and having a look at the message. Is there urgency around it? A request for a payment, a cryptocurrency hash associated with that request for payment. The confidence in that just gets higher and higher and higher as you start to link these together. And relationship mapping, I mentioned this, rare communication from internal, and a call to action or urgency from the head of the payments organisation department sending to somebody else who's got a cloud account, for example. Now, you'll see some of this crosses into relationships within an organisation. There's stuff that's global, there's stuff that's very individual, there's stuff that's departmental, and the identity and the user part becomes really important too. I'll touch on some examples and I'll get into those engines and detections and why we think they're important. So here's an example. It's probably too small to see, but we'll see from that one email to regarding a Office 365 or a Microsoft 365 password reset, we're looking at a couple of detections around rare sender domains, we're looking at spoofed senders, sender name, brand impersonations, fake buttons for the click, so that's looking at the link inside the button. It's not just one indicator, it's the indicators from those engines and detectors piling up to give you a confidence around what's occurring. Payroll phishing. This is great here. We're looking at unknown senders, payroll requests. These are benign and obvious for the point of example, but we're looking at payroll request from a sender and a call to action. No URLs, no documents to open, no links to click. So a lot of those traditional things that we try to train our users for, not present. And the last one, another overly obvious one about linking in a Bitcoin wallet as a hash. Once again, nothing to click, no attachments, no URLs. So why does this matter for us? So where we're seeing the detections and the engines come together, we're creating these engines that link into specific human language that we're familiar with as security practitioners. So we still have spam, grey mail, we still have scams, phishings, business email compromise, and we can group those detections into a category where we can give a confidence around what that category is and has meaning to for that particular email. But as I said, the identity is just as important here. Now, identity is the new perimeter. If you work in the firewall space, identity is the new perimeter, right? Think zero trust. Identity plays a part in email 100%. When we start to do things like relationship mapping for internal emails, identity matters. Is it individual user, department, blast radius? Is this something from the global that we're seeing, or is it something specific to the company? Now, the reason we have these detections, there's a link down the bottom there that starts to point to XDR. The reason we have all of these engines in the detections is because this is the light on my helmet. This lights up that extra little bit of visibility I need to move at speed in your SOC. And if that's an XDR for you, that's great. If that's a SIM, it's a SOAR, it's a managed service, it doesn't matter. We see, as far as an XDR platform on the left here, that network detection and response, endpoint detection and response, critical in XDR. Email still is seen in 91% of attacks. Email still has significant amount of telemetry that we can provide as input to compromise, whether that be at the SIM or the XDR. And email should be an input to your XDR or SIM or whatever that is, right? It gives you the ability, that visibility, to be able to add telemetry, add actions, outcomes as part of the gateway or the email service, as well as the endpoint and the network, to be able to correlate and then respond accordingly. So what does this mean for Microsoft 365? Well, this is my snapshot of Microsoft 365. If there's Microsoft people here, I apologize, there's probably a better way to represent that. But I tried to box what Microsoft 365 as a service is. Sure, it gets you your email. As a user, I can, from a security perspective, just use that service. 100%, put a light on your handlebars, go for a ride. It works. Is it enough for you? That's what I'm asking. The next possibility is an SMTP gateway. Traditional gateway, inline, think complexities around changing MX records or your mail records. You're now getting in the way of mail before it is delivered to the Microsoft 365 service, and you're doing filtering and proactive, active intervention at that point. Point 3 is you can use an integrated cloud email security service. And at this point, you're out of band. You're not in the way. You're taking a copy of email. You're not reconfiguring MX records or mail records, but you're putting these other highly developed AI engines, machine learning detectors, cloud-driven capability across copies of email, and then using the Microsoft graph theory to come back in and do something about it. And of course, you can use 2 and 3 together. And once again, that'll come down to you really need a light on your helmet and someone behind you with a light as well. That'll come down to your risk appetite and your ability to mountain bike through the bush at speed. So why supplement Microsoft 365? This is the bit I want you to take away that I can't tell you to do, but looking at these sorts of questions to ask yourself. Is it enough for your organization? Do you have enough visibility? Simple. Can your current email policy be supported if you're migrating from an on-prem gateway to Microsoft 365? Do you need to consider BEC and ATO? Is that even relevant for your environment? Then we get into the management. Is it straightforward from a filtering and a content perspective? And can you do all that you need from an incident response once you start to feed that into your SIM, your SOC, your XDR, your management capability? And of course, do you have all the reporting that you need? Now, the last 2 minutes, I'm going to make this all about Cisco. It doesn't need to be about Cisco, but hey, I'm from Cisco. This replace Cisco with any other vendor of your choice at this point. What I'd like to say is the integrated cloud email security solution for us as email threat defense has two reasons. Improve Microsoft 365 catch rates. Second is to simplify the administration tasks. Now, it will do a whole lot more than that. Provide access to XDR, says Cisco. It doesn't matter what it is. You manage detection and response capability, right? But provide the additional visibility and telemetry. And it's priced the same as Defender. So what? What am I saying? All the next-gen indicators, engines, detectors are coming in on cloud-based services. You can, from us, from any vendor, do an efficacy assessment now. The integrated cloud email security services are not in line. They're out of band. Put one in. Do your assessment and align it with your risk posture, your risk strategy, and your risk appetite. And that will help you answer those questions that I had on the board. If you go through that link, I'm sure no one's going to put a QR code on their phone because we're all security practitioners. Go to the link if you like. You'll go to there and your output will be a report. That report is what is the difference, what is the gap, what does that light on your helmet look like if you were to go down an integrated cloud email security solution. Thank you. That's the threat landscape. That's what we're doing about it. And my challenge to you is to answer those questions for yourself around risk and potentially take vendor of your choice, integrated cloud email solution, and put it in place and see what that's doing for your risk environment. Thank you very much.
Cool. Thank you, Nick. That was good. Thank you. Do I have any questions in the room? No? I got a bit of a joke.
Even about mountain biking?
Oh, here we go. You're saving people. Nice one.
So I come from a red team background, and phishing is one of the techniques that we use quite heavily.
Yeah.
The bar in terms of getting good phishing infrastructure set up is gone a lot higher these days. That said, with all these different detection mechanisms, so all the tags that you had up there for is there a relationship, is it a first-time sender?
Yep.
Without blocking all of the incoming emails, which is not a feasible situation, there's always going to be first-time emails from unknown senders, and the threat actors are using things like images in their emails, and
100%.
obviously you can't really detect that short of using OCR. With all of those challenges, how do you see like a product like XDR trying to solve some of those challenges? Yeah,
critical, right? And the reason it's critical, and once I say it's XDR, it's SIM, it's SOAR, it's your managed detection and response capability, whatever that looks like for you as critical, because an integrated cloud email solution is is sitting to the side of your email. So it's looking at copies of email. So there will be a first time, and it's said before, it's not if, it's when. And when that does happen, the managed response or the XDR is about responding to it. And having email as a critical input, the telemetry and the visibility that it provides as input to that is, yep, it's foundational to be able to respond, having one of those platforms in place, or management platforms in place. Absolutely critical.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. I suppose you can't get phished if you don't check your email. Is the key, right?